Alright guys, we're going to pick up kind of where we left off. When we were finishing up chapter 10, we were talking about arcs and how arcs were measured in degrees, and then what fraction of the circle those arcs were. So arcs can be measured in degrees, and arcs can also be measured with measurements that are linear measurements like feet, inches, centimeters. And in order to figure out the actual length of an arc, you're going to have to work with circumference. Okay, so circumference is the perimeter of the circle. You're not going to be able to write these notes down, but try to just follow along as I go through it and make sure that you can understand what's being said here. On the problems that are at the bottom, if you have a piece of paper and a pencil, it'd probably be good if you can just write those down just so you have some notes to refer to. So to find circumference, circumference is equal to the length of the diameter times pi, or circumference is equal to 2 times the radius times pi, because twice the radius is equal to the diameter. So the length of an arc is a linear measurement. So that's what we were talking about before, meaning feet, inches, meters. And it depends on the arc's measure and the circumference of the circle. Okay. So the length of an arc is equal to the circumference times the fractional part of the circle. So you remember that to find the length of an arc, you take whatever the degrees are and put them out of 360, because there's 360 degrees in a circle. Okay, and then you're going to end up multiplying whatever that fraction is. So the fraction here was whatever out of 360. You're going to end up multiplying that times the circumference, which that's why it says pi d, because pi d is the circumference. Okay, and d is the diameter, and pq is whatever the measure is of the arc. So let's try to go through some example problems. If you need to pause the video so you can get some paper to go through these, we're not going to go through a bunch, but we'll go through just a couple of these questions. So it says, first one there is find the radius of a circle whose circumference is 50 pi. Okay, so since I know circumference is equal to diameter times pi, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to replace the circumference here with 50 pi, and then I'm just going to write diameter times pi here. So if you look at that, I actually can take pi off of both sides there. I can divide both sides by pi, so it goes away. So I'm left with 50 equals d. So that means the diameter is 50. So if the diameter is 50, the radius is 25. Okay, now I could do that with a measurement like that that's already in terms of pi, or I could actually end up working something out that actually has a measurement. So for example, if I have something, if I told you the circumference of a circle was 31.4. So if I replaced that, I could say 31.4 is equal to diameter times pi. So what I would end up doing is dividing that side by 3.14. That would get rid of pi. And if I divide 31.4 divided by 3.14, that's going to give me 10. So if the diameter is 10, the radius is 5. Alright, so now let's try to find the length of these arcs. Okay, so it says find the length of each arc of a circle with a 12 centimeter radius. So we're going to keep that in mind. Okay, so if I have a 30-degree arc, I'm going to figure out what fraction of the circle that is. So remember, I take the measure of the arc and I put it at a 360 because there's 360 degrees in a circle. I'm going to go ahead and simplify this fraction. So 3 over 36 is 1/12. So a 30-degree arc is 1/12 of the circle. So if it's 1/12 of the circle, to find the length, it's going to be 1/12 of the circumference. Okay, so I need to find the circumference. Well, since I know the radius is 12, and I know circumference is diameter times pi, if the radius is 12, the diameter is 24. So the circumference here, I'm going to erase this where it says of circumference because we're going to figure out the circumference. The circumference is going to be 24 pi. So if I go ahead and I multiply this, I can go ahead and I can cancel on the diagonal like I normally would. It's just going to be 1 times 2 pi, which is 2 pi. So a 30-degree arc, its measure is going to be 2 pi. Now, if they asked you to find it to the nearest tenth, you would just go ahead and multiply 2 times 3.14. Same thing with the hundredth, 2 times 3.14, and figure out what the measurement actually is. Okay? So now I have a 105-degree arc. So I'm going to do 105 out of 360. Okay, I can divide those both by 5, which is going to be 21 over 72. I can reduce that a little bit further. I can divide them by 3, which is 7 out of 24, 7/24. Okay, so that piece of the circle is 7/24. A 105-degree arc is 7/24. Okay, so to figure out how long that is, I already know what the circumference is from the previous problem. We said the circumference was 24 pi. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply 7/24 times 24 pi, because over here I found that, remember, if the diameter is 24 times pi is the circumference. So I can go ahead and I can cancel out those 24s, because when you multiply, remember, you can cancel on the diagonals. So this is just going to equal 7 pi over 1, which is 7 pi. So again, if I wanted to actually figure that out to the nearest hundredths, I could go ahead and do that. Or the nearest tenths, I would just do 7 times 3.14. If they tell you to leave it in terms of pi, an answer that is in terms of pi includes the pi sign. You might have seen that before. Otherwise, they'll ask you to actually calculate it to the nearest tenth or hundredth, and then you can just go ahead and carry out the multiplication like it's asking you to do. Okay, so remember, circumference is perimeter. Okay, it's just like when you find the perimeter of a rectangle, a square. Since you can't just add up the sides because there's no sides, you're calculating the circumference. Remember that arc length can be a degree or it can be an actual measurement. So when we actually are given the degree like this, okay, we can then figure out the measurement in length by multiplying whatever the fraction of the circle is by the circumference, and then simplifying from there. All right, you've got some practice problems to do on ClassKick. So why don't you go ahead and do that. We'll be checking those in. Have a happy, healthy spring break. I hope everyone stays safe, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.